we'd like to reserve this last bucket of time for some reality check time from the quote-unquote buy side, right? These are the people who actually put the money to work, either directly or indirectly on behalf of clients, who see things, who understand where marketers' heads are at, where their budgets are or aren't, probably see a lot of trends way before, say, some of the media companies that they rely on do. And this is our unfettered opportunity to hear some of the best insights from some of the people who are literally in the midst of putting those dollars to work in media across all of its insanity. I want to let our two physically present guests introduce themselves, and then we'll start with our beamed-in guest who can introduce himself and start us off with some stuff. But ladies, thank you for being here. Who are you, and describe who you're with, and perhaps a little to our audience, reveal what your role is in the buy side, if you will.
Hi there. My name's Nicole Ovadia. I'm with BIA Advisory Services. I'm the head of forecasting. So essentially my job is to figure out in every single market, all 210 markets, how much money is going to be spent on automotive in 2027, on direct mail, and every vertical, every market, everything. So I'm doing all the tea leaf reading and forecasting. So spoiler alert, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Is it fair to say that you guys are the Bible or the Torah or the whatever? Pick your
I would love to let you say that, yes.
Yes,
Feel
okay.
free.
So BIA, I mean, they're
You
pretty
all
much
should say that, yes.
unimpeachable data source about local spending and trends.
I appreciate that. Thank
there
you.
you go. You're welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Gundry at Dentsu. I oversee all local broadcasts for our 4 brands. And I have to say, the last hour and a half, I have been on the edge of my seat listening to all of you talk, and it has done everything or kept me from saying and getting into that conversation. So I love the dialogue that's been going on. I probably will touch base on a couple things that you already talked about earlier today, but thank you so much for having me today, because I think this is really relevant and important conversation.
Well, look, I appreciate this, and I think this is your second year joining us for this, so you were good enough last year, so welcome back to the fray. And let us go to our mystery guest from live from the New York metropolitan area, I believe, right, Vincent?
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be with you physically in Florida today. But thank you for having me. So I'm Vincent. I'm leading Magna's Market Intelligence Unit. I'm not a buyer myself, but I'm part of IPG Media Brands, so a media buying and planning organization. But I focus on the research, and I'm going to share some of our forecasts that apply, by the way, not to our company specifically, not to our clients specifically, but our views on the broader market.
Yes, and Vincent, as we get your slides ready, the intelligence role is a rare one in the agency holding company space, right? And but it's an important one, right? Because knowing directional flows and where marketers' heads are at, and anticipating where trends are going or are not going is almost a lost art. So arguably what you do in that realm is actually very important and sadly not common.
Thank you, Tim. I should say what we do is, since we've done for 70 years, believe it or not, since the days of Bob Cohen, is look for correlations between the economic environment and advertising spending. And this correlation is harder to find these days because they are organic factors that are driving ad spend, for instance, retail media, more generally e-commerce and digital marketing.
So we have your first slide up, so go right ahead and just you give us a cue as you want it, when you want us to change. So we're thinking, by the way, so Vincent's, we're going to start with a little bit of truly macro views of where the ad world sort of lives, and we'll drill down with our guests as well. Go ahead.
So
thank you.
I cannot see the slides myself, but I think I did the intro about Magna, so we can go to slide number 2, which is a little update about the economy. So the US economy is a mixed bag at the moment, with macroeconomic strength, but microeconomic stress. So reading from left to right, from top to bottom, first activity, we had a strong, unexpectedly strong third quarter in terms of real GDP growth. You can see that first quarter, second quarter, GDP grew by about 10%. It accelerated to 4.9% in 3Q. Very unexpected. Remember, 9 months ago, everybody was wondering how deep would be the recession. It was like a given that we would have a recession. Well, we didn't. And so far, the economy is doing better than expected, and much better than in Europe, for instance. So that's the good news, but economists, the same economists that are seeing that stronger than expected start of the year, are still cautious for 4Q, as you can see here, +1, and they are cautious about 2024. We're not going back to 3% GDP growth, more like 1.5% to 2%. Okay, the next is inflation. The good news is the slowdown continues from the historical heights of 9% mid last year. It reached 3% in July, but it stopped going down. The slowdown pauses. We are up at 3.7 in September. Perhaps as a consequence of that, because consumers are very sensitive to inflation, we see consumer confidence worsening in the fall so far. From the all-time low in June of 2022, when gas hit $5, it recovered gradually. We reached index 71 in terms of consumer confidence in July, and now we are down to 63. I suspect what's happening in Gaza, in Israel, is probably worrying consumers also. Next would be looking at retail sales. Unsurprisingly, with the low consumer confidence, retail sales have been sluggish year to date, as you can see here. Almost zero growth since March. But that doesn't include vehicle, for instance, or energy. And finally, when we look at the car market, the recovery that we were expecting is happening. And if anything, it is stronger than what we were expecting or hoping. Because when we look at August, September, we are still growing double digits compared to 22, whereas a year ago, we were already just out of the supply crisis. So the corresponding month on 2022 were already recovering. So, but we still show strong year-over-year growth this year.
Excellent. Great. Go ahead. Keep going. Next slide. Yeah.
So looking at specific industry verticals, this is our expectations in terms of advertising spending, all media, net advertising spending, excluding cyclical effects, across 10 key industry verticals. So essentially, based on the business outlook, this is what we expect that brands in those industries will spend. Starting from the left, we have automotive. I should say, disappointing this year in terms of ad spend. Despite the market doing well, we are essentially flat in terms of advertising spending, but we think it will accelerate next year. So pink here is next year. Then we have entertainment, and on both years, not great. Clearly, 2024, there will be fewer releases on streaming and fewer theatrical releases because of the strikes, and that will affect marketing spending. I'm not going to comment on all of them, but maybe the third one is a big one. That would be insurance and finance. Bad year for insurance finance at the moment, because overall interest rates are not good news for large segments like mortgages. And of course, the crypto fad has faded away. It should be somewhat better next year. And without going into too many details, next year we expect continued growth in travel, recovery in tech, and let's say stability for CPG. Next slide. So back to total spending. Here we look at all industry verticals. And all media spending. Here we can see clearly the cycle that bottomed in 4Q, 1Q. 2Q was better already, and we have no doubt that 3Q and 4Q growth rates will grow because, as you can see, we are now comparing with very weak quarters in 22. So we think it's going to grow back to 6, 7, 8% and remain around there throughout 2024. Now, in terms of next slide, so we slide 5, how it translates in terms of revenue for media channels. Again, from left to right, we don't anticipate strong growth for traditional media. Actually, we anticipate national TV to be down this year, flat next year. Short form pure play, that would be YouTube and Twitch, that would be the short form video specialists, high single digit growth. Local TV, of course, if we include cyclical, we have the classic swing on election or non-election years, but excluding cyclical, excluding political, our guess is -6 this year, -5 next year. Audio, slightly down this year, flat next year. Publishing, down both years. Out of home would be the only traditional media format to show some growth. I mean, it's a big slowdown compared to the post-COVID recovery, but let's say mid-single digit growth. And finally, we have the two large digital segments, search and social, driven by retail media, e-commerce, and the better monetization of the vertical videos in the case of social media. So both are back to growing double digits, but it was growing like 20 to 30% for 10 years pre-COVID. Then 22 was a very bad year for digital media. Now it's back to growing high single digit, low double digit.
All right, that's excellent. So we're gonna cut you there, but because I think you actually teed up where we wanted to go next. But so thank you. This has been great. We want to get to the deeper local stuff. But let me just ask you to repeat, just for effect, the national television and the local television numbers and the local ones with the exclusion of political, please. Those numbers.
Excluding, yeah, maybe it's hard to see on the slide. It's the little box at the bottom, excluding cyclical, so essentially excluding political. We think net advertising sales for local TV will be -6 this year, -5.4 next year.
Okay, thank you. And please stay on with us. Hopefully you can hear us and contribute further to the conversation. All right, Ms. Tora of Local, BIA, what are your thoughts of the local 2024-ish stuff? And I'm also very interested to hear your thoughts about ex-political in all of that.
Yeah, great question. I mean, Vincent, that was a great setup. Vincent is much more macro, global, and I am much more micro, local. So we at BIA only talk about local revenues, and the way we define that is basically it has to be intended for the market it ends up in, so excluding network. So essentially, I don't care if it comes through a rep firm or anything like that. Every number I'm going to talk about, your local teams have control over in one way or another. That's how we do it. So I do want to dive into some verticals that I think are very exciting going into 2024. I can't believe nobody's talked about political yet. I should probably bring that up, right? So I am going to talk about 3 things in political. I want to talk about recent adjustments that we've made, because we've all been talking about political since 2020. So what has happened in the last few months at BIA to make us change our forecasts? So so there are 3 things. One is, in general, we're expecting $11 billion to be spent on local political in 2024. That's the big number. But it's going to happen later than we first expected. The Republican primaries are not spending as much money as we thought, and we'll see more during general election time. Biden's probably not going to get on the road as much, so we're expecting the shift in spending just a little later. So it's not so much that it's coming down, it's just the spending will happen later. Another shift that we made is the markets. We moved money around a lot in the markets. I raised my forecast in non-contested markets, and that seems counterintuitive, but what's happening there is we are going to see a lot more political advertising looking for fundraising, not looking for votes. So in non-contested markets like New York and California and all of these, you're going to see a ton of political spending because they're raising more money to raise more money to buy more votes in other markets. So don't sleep on New York is what I'm saying as a New Yorker. Not that I need more political spending in my market, but you know what I mean. The other thing is the other races. So these state Supreme Court races are getting very important. We saw Wisconsin last year. We just saw the other day all of these kind of further down the ballot races are spending more money and becoming more important. So again, don't just look at the presidential elections. You got to look at all of these contested races, and that is moving money to different markets. So the third shift is the platforms. When you're seeking dollars, when you're raising money, you're more on social media. So we're not going to see Biden looking to raise money on, WABC TV in New York. You're going to see it on social media, aimed at me, my Facebook account because I'm old, or my TikTok account because I'm young, and looking to raise money in that way. The last thing is CTV OTT. So of course, we've been talking about that a lot. I think the really local races are gonna lean into that. Everybody, if I'm running for District 4, I can shoot a commercial on my iPhone and then it can be on CTV OTT. In the past, direct mail was way expensive. It's getting more expensive. Oh, that's the other thing I wanna throw in. Somebody yesterday said something about direct mail not being effective. No. Gen Z loves direct mail. Why? Because they never see their names. Like getting a piece of mail with their name on it is a novelty. They literally look at it. I'm not kidding you. We've seen studies. So Gen Z getting a piece of mail directed at them, I don't care what it says, they're into it. So again, if you're seeking Gen Z, don't sleep on direct mail. Okay, two more verticals. Is that cool? Okay, two more verticals. One is real estate. So I believe that housing prices are starting to come down. We've seen there's mixed messages out there, but it looks like the housing prices are starting to come down. And that is what I think is the first domino in getting the real estate market back in track, because interest rates are not coming down anytime soon. So regardless of the election, it doesn't matter. So we have to drum up demand in real estate in another way. So when housing prices start to become not as egregiously obnoxious as they are, a little more approachable for people, I think that we'll see a lot of advertising around date your rate and marry your house. So that's drumming up demand. Don't worry about the interest rate. Who cares how high it is? You'll refinance in 5 years. Go marry that house. But housing prices need to come down for that. And so that's something in 2024 I think is going to take off. And the last one I want to talk about is restaurants. So we are seeing the number of visits to restaurants are going down, but the check sizes are going up. So in 2024, I'm expecting, make it a night. People, again, we see people are spending money on experiences, but they are worried about what's going on. So less often are they going out, which again makes restaurants competitive, because now we have to compete. If you're only going out twice a month instead of 3 times a month, I got to compete for that because that check size is going to be bigger. So I think the restaurants, it's going to be more competitive in 2024. So I do have a little more on auto, but I'm going to pause there and let the conversation go, and we'll see if we come back to that.
Okay, that's awesome. Jam-packed full of stuff. I hope people are taking notes on that. All right, so I appreciated both of those insights, because I think that eludes most of us in this room, because we don't have the time and the luxury, frankly, to strategically ascertain where things are this month. We just got to make stuff happen. Okay, so Heather, you're making stuff happen, right? You're the ultimate reality check, right? And dealing with checks, virtually, of course, with 6-month hold payments. How do you react to these kinds of numbers? Do you feel more optimistic, more pessimistic? And more importantly, where are your clients' heads at? And where are those clients coming from?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think collectively all of us are still having a little bit of pain from 2022, and I think we also felt in 2023 we'd get to the end of the budget declines, and I really don't think that came to fruition. I'm hoping for 2024 to take a little bit of a turn. I know that the numbers we're hearing are down about 6% locally. That number does include local digital, local broadcast, local radio. We, on the other hand, have seen a larger decline than that. We are hoping as we go into 2024, it won't be as much. Automotive is down on our end as well. as sports betting. So you all know we used to spend a lot of money in sports betting, and that has really tapered off to almost, well, for us, none, but for other agencies, I know it's really tapered down a little bit. I do think, however, to your point about restaurants being up, we are looking at our QSRs, and we have a few of them. We're starting to see more spending in that area, which is really great. We also are seeing some increase in spending in the medical field. So there is there's some light at the end of the tunnel, I would say, but I also will say that I have a huge passion for local, like all of you, and we want to keep as many dollars as we possibly can in that local space. It is a battle every single day. Like every single day, we have our digital teams, our programmatic teams knocking on our door saying we can do it this way and still reach the audience. So we've had to make a lot of changes at our agency in order to keep those dollars locally because we know the audience that we need to meet for all of our clients. So some of you are aware that we are going full throttle into data-driven linear, and we are actually looking at our exact audience in each market, and that is on a local level. Like, we haven't been able to do that in this industry forever, and we are now going officially for one of our clients, all of 2024 will be that data-driven linear, and we've done testing for 2 other clients, and we're pretty much getting ready to do that as well. And the way that it works, sorry, is it okay if I go into this? So the way that it works is we have partnered with Comscore, and we take our M1 or Mercury data, which is our proprietary Merkle agency insight into the audience. And dependent on what client it is, we have all their attributes and who we're looking for. So we mirror those 2 together, and we are able to see how programming is being delivered on an impression basis, so we can really target those programs and their shows. And the beauty part about it is all of the rep firms and all of the station groups are able to access that exact same data, and historically we can look at how it has delivered over the last several years. So then when we have the conversations with the stations and we do our lovely negotiations, we're really negotiating off an audience that's relevant to our clients. So it has really changed how we're going into market, and we're now able to have the conversation with our clients about reaching that correct audience. And digital has been able to do that for quite some time, and now we're able to do it with linear as well. So I feel really passionate about the fact that this is the way that we need to move into the future. And there's a heavy lift, of course, on all your end, because we need to make sure that your systems are set up correctly to ingest that data. We are able to get a pulse report every, I think it's 48 hours, to show just like a weekly post-buy or a daily overnights. We're able to see how the program's doing. And of course, we can optimize, should we need to, on a dime. So that's how I see 2024 going, is more to that data-driven linear approach. You all probably are aware as well that digital and local, in our mind, it is all video. That's been going on for quite some time, 10 years, I would say. Our agency is not the same setup as my previous agency, which was GTB, is set up where the individual buyers are responsible for it. What is happening, I think, though, with digital is a lot of that is going programmatically through our programmatic teams. So the conversation earlier that was had about, like, how do you sell that with linear, how do you sell the digital, how do you sell the linear together, it should be looked at. It's all video. I think we would all agree to that. Programmatically, digitally programmatically, not linear, they're able to find that audience, and they're able to do it, I believe, much quicker, much cheaper, et cetera, et cetera. So that is another thing that we battle. Talking about political, and this kind of ties it all together. When you talk about political, what we did the last go around is we know, I hate the word political. I literally lose a little piece of my soul every time we talk about it. But what we did 4 years ago is we had a plan of attack going into the year as to what we were going to do when we started getting those preemptions. So we first and foremost develop a political POV that is sent out to all of our clients, all of our leads, that basically says this is what our plans are, this is what's going on in the market. We then deliver that every single week to our clients. What we also do is try to be creative in how we place the buys. And that's where I always reach out to you all to say, what can we do to set ourselves apart? I don't want to be preempted just for a lower rated ad. Let's do a package. Let's look at areas that aren't taken out by political. But then once we do get preempted, which we always do, we need to be able to move that somewhere else. We can't keep it within the local space because it'll just get preempted the next week down the road. So that's where my concern always comes, because once that money's gone, I don't know if it's coming back. And someone said that earlier on the first panel this morning. I don't know if it's coming back. And we did see that last year, or 2 years ago, where we preempted stuff and we put it on one of our digital partners within our department, and our budgets are down, and more than that 6%. And some of it is going to programmatic. So just one thing that's really important to me is that we figure it out together on how we do it. Interestingly, I know we had a conversation earlier about rep firms and going through the holding companies. We, as an agency, are very rep friendly. Everyone pretty much knows that. One of the things that we did with political is we farmed out 4 different companies for digital and said, we would like to partner with you during political, and all of our preempted dollars will go to you. We're not going to do it where, we pick one group here, one group here. We said, let's figure it out up front. You tell us your max impressions. Once we get to a certain threshold per market of preemptions, it will then go to you. And we did the whole white sheet, and we did the negotiations and the lowest cost per thousand. And ultimately, it ended up with Gamut, because Gamut had come to the table with all of these things. And so that's one thing when it gets to rep firm or national, one thing that I just wanted to add on to that conversation. It is something we look at closely.
Locality. Just kidding. Not kidding. That's
I know.
the new name.
I'm
there you
still
go.
old
There you
school.
are. That's okay. Good.
I'm still old school.
All right. So this is great. All of this has been fantastic. So Heather, I'm going to double click on 2 questions with our remaining few minutes. So, and we can all talk afterwards as we all say goodbye. Number one is you mentioned about I don't know where that money might go if it ever comes back. Where do you think it goes? Do you think it goes to the streamers who are doing it more? Is it +4 cluster-based and more programmatically-esque, or do you think it goes other places altogether?
Yeah, I think it goes more programmatic. I think that's where it's going to right now. I would love for it to stay in the local streaming space. It's just not doing that. It's going to programmatic. We're trying to reach that audience. We're trying to make sure, believe it or not, out of home has had an uptick, and that's where we've seen a lot of dollars that went in 2023, this year. We've seen an uptick in that. When we pitch new business, it is not, as you can imagine, is not 80% of your buy will go to local TV. What is refreshing, though, is they're entertaining the local conversation much more than they used to. I mean, let's face it, addressable is local. Addressable is actually getting into someone's household in a local market. Now that we're doing data-driven linear, that's helping our case as well. So in every new business pitch, it's always about audience-based buying. We as an agency have also switched to impressions, as you're all aware of, for the last 10 years. We have pay for performance. We're always trying to make local a better space, a more opportune space. I can't tell you how many times that I have heard the conversation, and Rob said it earlier, that TV is dead. And it drives me crazy because it's not. It's actually getting more robust. There's more opportunities. I'll call it video, but there's more opportunities. And I think with local sports, it's huge. I mean, tentpole events, we have literally week-long or weekly conversations about tentpole events. And it's not just national, it's local. And so that's really important to us.
I do think, so where's the money going? One of the other things which we haven't really talked about much here, and maybe this is the elephant in the room I'm not supposed to mention, but I think a lot of this money is going to retail media networks. I think it's leaving your pockets completely, unfortunately. And I think, those end of aisle displays with the video, like that, walking into Costco and, the music is already there and the screens and the video display. And, if I'm Coca-Cola, I can buy an ad in Walmart and I don't have to go through anybody in this room. And I think, that's coming. It's already here, and the money is coming out of the pockets of everyone here, unfortunately.
That's an excellent point. Retail media is having a moment and then some, and I think the next generation of all that is going to be connected to the television and the video and the data that connects those things, cause and effect and all that stuff, and I'm sure Vincent would have gotten to that too. All right, last question, Heather, and we got to go. Sorry, but this is more than great. I just question, a little insight into the composition of your client base. You know what it is now. Where do you think it's evolving to? What areas are growing or not growing? Are there new categories on the horizon? And obviously, without we know where political sort of is and stuff. Is political becoming more of a mainstream, arguably partially core thing, even outside the bumps and stuff? So I'm curious, a little view into where your business is coming from in the next year or two, based on what you're seeing.
Yeah, you're talking to our clients, correct?
Clients, correct.
Yeah. It's kind of a loaded question because we've had some recent wins, but we've also had some recent losses, and I mentioned earlier sports betting. So Caesars, we still work with them, but that has kind of gone to the wayside for a little bit. We recently picked up Truist Bank, which we will start working on in January, so we're really excited about that one. We have 4 clients that we've recently pitched that we're just kind of waiting on the answers. You may have also heard that we picked up Papa John's last week, so Papa John's is now on our radar. We're really excited about that. We also picked up Del Taco last year. So when I mentioned QSRs, that goes along with Jack in the Box out of our LA office. So that's been great. Kroger is a fantastic client to work with. They are really diving deep into the data driven linear. They also are looking very closely into addressable, which makes perfect sense for them. I feel that they alone will get a little bit bigger maybe in the next year.
And how about general categories too?
Oh, yeah, categories. Well, kind of talking about that. Automotive, we do not currently have an automotive. We used to have another automotive that we dealt with, and I've worked on automotive my entire life. Automotive, I feel, is going to start coming back a little bit more. We handle Cadillac, and that's right, we handle Cadillac. And I think they will probably start seeing something more in first quarter, and then retail.
So I can pop in on automotive just at the very end. So for auto, I agree, but to take it another level, we have to look at all the tiers. So tier 1, that's the brands. I expect them to spend a lot more next year. And what they're going to be doing is all of their EV launches. There's going to be a lot of more, Chinese imports and cheaper cars. And so, everybody's going to have to tell the world that my EV exists. And we're going to see a lot of that in 2024. And, that's new product launch. So that can be CTV, OTT, that can be over the air, that's everywhere. So as opposed to tier 3, again, that's drumming up demand. So we're talking about those high interest rates. So that's going to be a lot more local, a lot more, I think we're going to see a lot of being priced out with political crowd out. And so those guys will go digital. CTV, OTT is embracing, the local dealers are embracing that. We've seen that happen this year, and it's going to continue. So the major problem is tier 2, and I don't expect them to come back until interest rates start to come down. And depends on the election. I'm not calling tier 2 any real recovery in 24. Is my thought right now, but that's what I got on auto.
All right, so on that happy note, we have to unfortunately end it, but this has just been a big dump of data and information, and we cannot appreciate it more. Vincent, thank you very much from afar. Ladies here in person, awesome,
Thank you.
Very good, appreciate it very much.